On the day the crown prince ascended the throne, I stumbled upon him and Jiao, the daughter of a convicted minister, caressing each other on the bed. He shielded her behind him. Jiao and I have known each other since childhood. I couldn't bear to see her become a court concubine. As empress, you should possess the magnanimity to tolerate others. I said nothing and turned to leave. Later, my father helped Pei Heng secure the throne, yet Pei Heng accused my father of treason. That day, the chancellor's residence ran red with blood, and I was beaten to death with clubs in the inner palace. Shen Jiao trampled my face. Lin Xiao, you had your father denounce my father for treason. This is your retribution. 2 months later, my childhood sweetheart Mu Jianin raised a rebellion, slaughtering the palace. The 5th prince ascended the throne by trampling over Pei Heng and Shen Jiao's blood, while Mu Jianin drew his sword and killed himself before my grave. He said, Xiao, don't be afraid. I'm here to keep you company. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of my 18th birthday. The emperor smiled warmly as he asked me, Shower, what kind of husband do you desire? It took me a long while to realize I had been reborn. Today was my birthday banquet. The mansion was filled to capacity with guests, even the emperor himself had come to attend. Shower, what sort of husband do you want? I shall grant you a marriage decree. The emperor spoke with a smile, and all eyes instantly turned to me. In my previous life, following my father's wishes, I had shyly lowered my head, saying only that the emperor should decide. Then I was bestowed in marriage to Crown Prince Pei Heng, destined to become the future empress. But this time, I did not lower my head. I knelt respectfully before the emperor and declared in a solemn voice, This humble maiden has long harbored affection for General Mu. I beseech your majesty to grant my wish. The stern-faced man seated in the distance abruptly lifted his head. Startled expressions flashed across the faces of those present. Everyone knew my father belonged to the crown prince's faction, while Mu Jianin aligned with the 5th prince. The emperor shot my father a meaningful glance. Enraged, my father scolded me, Have you drunk yourself into stupidity? How dare you speak nonsense before his majesty? I remained kneeling. The emperor gazed at Mu Jianin with a distant expression. I wonder if Shower's affection is one-sided, or if it is mutual. All eyes turned to Mu Jianin, waiting for his response. If he nodded, it would mean standing squarely in the eye of the storm. The great general of the frontier marrying the chancellor's daughter would surely unsettle both the emperor and the crown prince. I dared not turn to see Mu Jianin's expression. I only hoped that this time, he would be brave enough. A cool breeze swept past. A tall figure strode over, kneeling beside me and clasping my hand tightly. It was my fault for letting Xiao speak on this matter. I cannot control my feelings for Lin Xiao. My affection runs deep. I beg your majesty to grant our union. Under the watchful eyes of all present, the emperor was cornered and could only grant the marriage. I became Mu Jianin's fiancé. The crown prince, who had remained silent, gave me a deep look before rising from his seat. Those around us glanced left and right, their eyes meeting in a flurry of gossip-hungry expressions. I looked up at my father. His face was flushed crimson, his beard trembling with fury. Not far away, the 5th prince was also trembling, likely from shock. After the banquet ended, my father swiftly dragged me into a room and locked me inside. You fool! Do you have any idea what trouble you've caused? I am the chancellor. Don't you understand how many interests are tied to your marriage? Do you think you can marry just anyone you please? Mark my words, this match with Mu Jianin will never happen. You will marry Pei Heng. I stared at him calmly. Father, Pei Heng is ruthless and heartless. He won't spare us in the future. My father's rage twisted into a bitter laugh. So now you're a fortune teller? What kind of love potion did that Mu Jianin lad feed you to make you so determined to marry him? Knowing reason was futile, I grabbed my handkerchief and began sobbing. My father dreaded my tears. He spun around twice, then flung his sleeves and stormed out. After a long silence, I rose to close the door. Suddenly, strong hands pressed against the doorframe. Mu Jianin pushed his way inside. Staring at this man, familiar yet distant, I felt an overwhelming urge to embrace him. In my past life, after marrying Pei Heng, we never spoke again. I rose from crown princess to empress, while he climbed from deputy general to commander of the frontier. Our paths had long since diverged. Had he not fought tooth and nail to avenge me, had he not sacrificed everything to die for me, I would never have known how deeply he loved me. Mu Jianin, it's been a long time. My eyes reddened as I spoke, but Mu Jianin only stared at me coldly. Lin Xiao, who sent you? I advise you not to get entangled in these power struggles. I froze, then looked up at him. Mu Jianin, are you afraid? Mu Jianin snorted coldly, saying nothing. I knew he wasn't afraid. If he were, he wouldn't have cooperated with me before the emperor. He simply didn't believe that I truly wanted to marry him. Mu Jianin, regardless of how many interests are entangled here, regardless of what others may be scheming, I ask you this, I want to marry you. Will you take me as your wife, or not? Mu Jianin stared at me for a long moment before suddenly turning and walking away. I watched his figure disappear into the night, smiling silently. Mu Jianin, I don't know what this life's ending will be. But no matter what happens, I want to stand by your side. I knew Pei Heng wouldn't let the arranged marriage rest. To ascend the throne, he needed the support of the chancellor's household. So when the empress invited me to the palace, I knew Pei Heng wanted to see me. Shower, I've missed you so much. In the empress's chambers, Pei Heng gazed at me with feigned passion. In my past life, I'd been deceived by his performance, believing he truly loved me. This man would say anything, do anything to achieve his goals. Crown Prince, watch your words. I am now Mu Jianin's betrothed. I looked at Pei Heng coldly and distantly. Pei Heng's eyes instantly reddened. Shower, it's my fault. I should have clarified things with Father Emperor long ago, should have had him grant us a royal betrothal. Shower, we've known each other so long. You know my heart, there's only you in it. I want only you. I watched Pei Heng's performance in silence, unwilling to utter another word. Seeing no flicker of emotion from me, Pei Heng changed the subject. Shower, marriage is no trivial matter. As members of the royal nobility, we must consider the greater good. Last night, my fifth brother knelt outside the emperor's chambers for the entire night without an audience. Mu Jianin holds military power. If he marries into the chancellor's household, have you considered the predicament your father would face? Shower, I am your true match. If you ask, I'll risk everything to persuade father to change his decree. I yawned. Finished? Pei Heng froze, a flash of ferocity darting through his tender gaze. I pretended not to notice and turned to leave. After exiting the palace, I slipped into the fifth prince's residence. The fifth prince nearly jumped out of his skin when he saw me. Why are you here? What do you want? For heaven's sake, leave. You're going to get me killed. Now everyone thinks I'm trying to ally with your father to seize the throne from the crown prince. It's terrifying. I held back the fifth prince, who was fidgeting nervously, and looked him straight in the eye. What? You don't want to seize it? The crown prince is just a figure, he can be deposed or installed, can't he? Prince Pei Zhan stared intently into my eyes. After a moment, a sharp, wry smile flickered across his previously simple, clear gaze. Lin Xiao, you surprise me greatly. Jianin once claimed you were the most considerate of the greater good, the most respectful of propriety and doctrine. It seems he was mistaken. I smoothed my skirt hem and offered a composed smile. He was not mistaken. Only. People change. Pei Zhan gazed at me with a haunting intensity. What exactly do you want? I spoke each word deliberately. I want Pei Heng to be utterly destroyed. Pei Zhan arched an eyebrow. He drew closer, his eyes blazing with an unsettling intensity. So, you schemed to marry Mu Jianin, then manipulated me into power, using us both merely as tools to topple Pei Heng, correct? I covered my mouth with a cough. That Mu Jianin isn't exactly. Then what is he? He is the love of my life. Pei Zhan's smile was odd, as if he'd heard some scandalous gossip. He turned and sat on the side couch, lazily observing me. Lin Xiao, this prince has no desire for power. I seek only peace and prosperity. You may leave now. I said nothing more, only gently placing the note from my sleeve onto the table. It bore a single name, Shen Jiao. Pei Zhan glanced at it, seemingly unconcerned. He lifted his teacup, sipped, then pressed it onto the note. See her out. I turned and left the Prince of Lin's residence. Pei Zhan watched the man emerge from behind the screen, his tone teasing, "This young lady is bold and spirited. Can you handle her?" The man's face remained cold, but the corners of his mouth still curled up slightly. After returning from the palace, I don't know what the Empress told my father, but suddenly he forbade me from leaving the mansion freely. I had planned to sneak out to find Mu Jianin, but now I couldn't even step outside the gates of the Prime Minister's residence. That night, after much deliberation, I decided to take the risk. "Miss, this wall is so high. Are you sure this will work? Stop fussing. Hold the ladder steady." In the back courtyard, I'd already climbed to the very top of the wall. My maid, Yuchuan, watched from below, her face filled with worry. "Miss, please be careful. Don't fall." "Ah." Her words hadn't even finished echoing when my foot slipped, and I tumbled over the wall. Terrified, I was about to scream when I landed in a strong, steady embrace. Mu Jianin spun me around once before setting us down safely. I took the chance to cling to him, refusing to let go. "Wah, that scared me to death." Mu Jianin remained motionless. "Why were you climbing the wall?" "To find you. I missed you." The man I clung to seemed to tremble slightly. He pushed my arms away, creating distance between us. I reached for his hand, but he took a step back, looking at me coldly. Frustrated, I choked out, "Mu Jianin, you don't like me anymore?" Mu Jianin glanced around, his voice icy. 2 years ago, right here, you said you never wanted to see me again. You said we should consider the greater good and not put father in a difficult position. You said our bond was only that of siblings, that I should find a good girl to marry. You said. I sniffed, cutting him off. I remember what I said. But I regret it. Mu Jianin looked at me with his deep, dark eyes. I met his gaze earnestly. Mu Jianin, I regret it. Do you still want to come back? Mu Jianin remained silent. His face seemed etched with frost and wind, yet I clearly saw the turmoil in his eyes. I touched his cheek, my fingers tracing inch by inch across his brow and eyes. Mu Jianin, what exists between us has never been mere sibling affection. A powerful force pinned me against the corner of the wall. Mu Jianin whispered into my ear, enunciating each word, "Lin Xiao Xiao, I never truly left. But from this moment on, I will never give you another chance to change your mind." A heavy, scorching kiss descended upon me. I was utterly lost in it, unable to pull away. "Miss, are you all right?" "Ah." Yuchuan peered over the wall, but upon recognizing Mu Jianin and me, quickly retreated. I pushed Mu Jianin away. Someone saw us. Mu Jianin pulled me back with displeasure, silencing me. News from the fifth prince arrived swiftly. Shen Jiao had been found. Pei Heng hid her in a qin workshop, where she disguised herself as a qin player, surrounded by numerous secret guards. Pei Heng was cautious, only occasionally bringing her to his boat at midnight for secret trysts in the lake's center. My face clouded with worry. We must devise a way to lure him out during the day. Pei Zhan sipped his tea in silence. How can we lure Pei Heng out? Pei Zhan looked away, seemingly not listening. Your Highness, do you enjoy listening to zither music? I gazed at him with a smile. He pointed at me, his voice trembling. I know what you're thinking. I'm telling you it's impossible. Even at my worst, I would never trade my dignity for a qin player. After a stick of incense burned, Pei Zhan appeared at the qin workshop's entrance, disguised as an aristocratic young noble. The fifth prince had always carried himself with a certain charm, posing as a wealthy young master to catch Shen Jiao's attention was child's play. Several days later, Pei Zhan half-coerced, half-coaxed Shen Jiao into a secluded mansion. Secret guards swiftly relayed the news to Pei Heng. Raging with fury, Pei Heng rushed to the scene, only to find Shen Jiao alone. Her face streaked with tears, she trembled in terror. Brother Heng, you're finally here. That man forced me to come here, threatening to kill me if I refused. He just heard you were coming and fled in panic. Brother Heng, thank goodness you're here. Jiao was so scared. Pei Heng pulled Shen Jiao into his embrace, his eyes dark with fury. Moments later, he led Shen Jiao out the door, only to collide head-on with my father. Behind him stood the emperor, dressed in plain clothes. Everyone froze in shock. The emperor occasionally went on incognito visits, accompanying my father to observe the people's conditions. This was a secret known only to my father and me. Having discovered where my father and the emperor would be today, I had tipped off Pei Zhan beforehand. Before Pei Heng could react, the emperor had already turned and left, his face dark. He looked displeased, assuming Pei Heng was meeting someone in secret. But my father stood frozen. He recognized Shen Jiao, the daughter of Shen Bingzhang. That evening, my father returned to the prime minister's residence, his mind heavy with thoughts. I was waiting for him in the front hall. Father, have you seen Pei Heng's true colors? My father looked startled. Shower. My eyes brimmed with earnestness. Father, Shen Bingzhang was arrested by your own hand. Shen Jiao hates you most of all. Back then, Shen Bingzhang betrayed the nation for personal gain, causing countless soldiers and civilians to die unjustly. He surrendered 3 cities to the enemy, a grave criminal. As the crown prince, Pei Heng wallows in romantic entanglements, unable to distinguish right from wrong, with no moral boundaries. How could such a man shoulder great responsibilities? My father slowly sat down, deep in thought. After a moment, he spoke gravely, Father understands. You may withdraw. I silently returned to my room. Just as I opened the door, someone behind it pulled me into a tight embrace. Why did you take so long? I turned to look at Mu Jianin with a smile. General Mu, did the Chancellor's mansion build its walls too low? Mu Jianin snorted lightly. Even if they were a foot higher, they wouldn't stop me. After kissing my cheek several times, Mu Jianin finally released me and said earnestly, with Shen Jiao's affair exposed, Pei Heng will likely make his move. You must be cautious. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Let him come. Mu Jianin looked deeply into my eyes and spoke softly, Xiao, what exactly did Pei Heng do to you? I froze for a moment, unsure how to begin. After a long moment, my eyes reddened. Mu Jianin, if I told you I once had a dream where Pei Heng tormented me, slaughtered my entire family, and left me to die horribly in the imperial harem, and that's why I want revenge. Would you believe me? Mu Jianin's eyes darkened like ink. Moments later, he gently stroked my cheek. Xiao, I don't know if I'm in your dreams, but I'm here now. I'll never let him bully you. I wrapped my arms around Mu Jianin softly, silently whispering in my heart, Mu Jianin, you're here. You've always been here. After my father's visit to the palace, the emperor flew into a rage and summoned Pei Heng for a nighttime reprimand. Rumor had it the empress knelt outside the hall of cultivating the heart for an entire day before His Majesty's fury subsided. Pei Heng was sentenced to a month of confinement, while Shen Jiao was reassigned as a government-sanctioned courtesan. That day, I stood on the bridge watching Shen Jiao being dragged away by officials. She cried out Pei Heng's name, but no one came to save him. The 5th prince stood beside me, feigning sorrow. Such a beauty. What a pity. I gave him a cold stare. A pity? Pei Zhan cleared his throat and turned his gaze elsewhere. Not a pity. Not at all. I recalled seeing Shen Jiao on Pei Heng's bed in my past life. She too had worn that pitiful, endearing expression, tempting Pei Heng to betray even his most loyal ministers who had helped him ascend to power. On the day Pei Heng ordered my execution, she forbade me to take my own life. Instead, she had men beat me with a club, inch by inch, from my calves to my thighs, shattering flesh and bone. When pain overwhelmed me and I fainted, she doused me with boiling water to wake me. She said she wanted me to endure every agony fully conscious. She said she would avenge every member of the Shen family. The memory of that agony made me ache. I clenched my fists, refusing to tremble. A warm hand covered mine. Mu Jianin whispered softly in my ear, Xiao, don't rush. Everything you wish to do, you can achieve. There's plenty of time ahead. This man didn't know what Shen Jiao had done to me, yet he saw my pain and my hatred. He asked no questions, but he always stood behind me. Without Pei Heng's protection, Shen Jiao finally fell into disgrace. The fifth prince occasionally visited her, saying her eyes had lost their light, like a walking corpse. Pei Heng shut himself away in his mansion, reflecting on his mistakes, making no moves. Mu Jianan asked me, Shen Jiao alone can't touch Pei Heng. What's our next move? I replied coldly, do you know why Shen Bingzhang betrayed the country back then? It was for money. Mu Jianan seemed surprised. I continued, Pei Heng only became crown prince by leveraging his status as the empress's son and his position as the eldest legitimate heir. He knows his own talents are limited, so he relies on money and favors to win over ministers. Shen Bingzhang was determined to make Shen Jiao empress. He used our dynasty's intelligence as leverage, sacrificing the lives of millions to secure vast sums of gold and silver for Pei Heng to consolidate his power. In my previous life, after Shen Jiao entered the palace, I had my father thoroughly investigate Shen Bingzhang's case. Only then did I discover that Pei Heng was also implicated. Unfortunately, by then we were already in too deep to turn back. But this time around, Pei Heng won't escape. Mu Jianan stared at me, his mouth opening as if to ask how I knew all this. But in the end, he merely nodded. I understand. However, investigating this will be no simple task. It involves far-reaching connections and will likely take some time. I leaned against Mu Jianan. Don't worry. I still have my father. On the day of Liqiu, the autumn equinox, Princess Chang'e celebrated her birthday. Chang'e hosted a banquet at her imperial retreat outside the capital, inviting numerous noblewomen to celebrate. In my past life, having married Pei Heng, I maintained a cordial aunt-niece relationship with Chang'e. Knowing she and Pei Heng were not of the same mind, I attended the banquet as scheduled. Midway through the feast, my maidservant accidentally soaked my robes. An imperial lady-in-waiting escorted me to the palace chambers to change. Just as I entered the palace hall, my jade bracelet was suddenly snatched away. Sensing trouble, I turned to leave only to find the doors locked from the outside. Shower, it's been a while. I whirled around to find Pei Heng seated on a chair, his gaze dark and menacing. What does the crown prince mean by this? I suspected his intentions, yet forced myself to remain composed. Yet Pei Heng seemed to see right through me. He smiled coldly, his eyes filled with icy disdain. Shower, this isn't the capital. Your Mu Jianan isn't here. My fifth brother has quite the skill. Not only did he track down Jiao, but he also used your feelings for Mu Jianan to win over the chancellor's household. Truly impressive. I intended to spare you, but alas, you allowed Jiao to be humiliated in that place of ill repute and caused me to be scolded by the emperor. I absolutely cannot let you off now. Lin Xiao, even if your marriage to Mu Jianan was decreed by the emperor, I have ways to ensure you never marry him. I understood Pei Heng's intentions perfectly. Pei Heng! How dare you? Are you not afraid the emperor will punish you? Pei Heng snorted coldly. I, the crown prince, was recuperating in the imperial retreat due to illness. You trespassed into my chambers and actively seduced me. What crime have I committed? Just as I was about to speak again, my limbs suddenly grew weak and limp. I glared at Pei Heng in fury. He was smiling as he toyed with the incense burner on the table. You laced the incense with drugs? Shameless! Pei Heng strode over, swept me up in his arms, and tossed me onto the bed. He tore open my sash, taunting, tomorrow, people will see you leaving my room half undressed. Guess what your father will think? Will Mu Jianan still want you? Shower, I had intended to make you crown princess. But since you're so disobedient and have lost your virtue before marriage, I can only reluctantly accept you as a concubine. Your father will be eternally grateful to me. My outer robe couldn't withstand Pei Heng's tugging and was soon stripped away, leaving me in only my undergarments. Tears gushed from my eyes, yet I couldn't even move. Pei Heng kissed my neck. Shower, this potion is potent. You'll enjoy it. I knew Pei Heng wouldn't let this go easily. I'd imagined him pressuring my father, targeting Mu Jianan, even assassinating me, but I never anticipated he'd resort to such vile, despicable tactics to force my compliance. This man was more shameless than I could have imagined. The potion's effects were overwhelming, gradually robbing me of my ability to think. Through the haze, I heard someone force their way through the door. I saw someone grab Pei Heng and throw him to the ground. Heavy blows and agonized screams echoed through the room. Turning my head, I saw Mu Jianin choking Pei Heng, his eyes bloodshot, radiating murderous intent. No! Struggling to my feet, I threw myself in front of Mu Jianin. Jianin, you can't kill him. Pei Heng, his mouth dripping blood, sneered with vicious defiance. Kill me? Mu Jianin, do you dare? Veins bulged on Mu Jianin's hands as his voice cracked hoarsely. You'll find out soon enough. I clung tightly to Mu Jianin from behind, sobbing uncontrollably. Jinan, no, don't. But Mu Jinan seemed possessed, utterly deaf to my pleas. Pei Heng's breathing grew faint, and despair washed over me. If Pei Heng died here, Mu Jinan would surely follow. With matters reaching this point, I released Mu Jinan and sat quietly beside him, whispering softly, Jinan, whether in life or death, I will be with you. Mu Jianin, in this lifetime, if we cannot grow old together, then let us enter the underworld together. The grip on Pei Heng's neck suddenly loosened. After catching his breath for a moment, Mu Jianin wrapped me in his outer robe and carried me into the carriage. How did you get here? I asked Mu Jianin dazedly from within the carriage. Princess Chang'e has private ties with the fifth prince. She sensed something amiss with Pei Heng and tipped us off. I tossed restlessly in Mu Jianin's embrace. Mu Jianin, I'm so hot. The arms encircling me tightened, pinning me immovable. I know. I'll take you to find a physician. I pulled away in frustration, turning Mu Jianin's face to meet mine. I don't want a doctor. I want you. Mu Jianin averted his gaze, his voice low. Be good. His expression remained composed and controlled, yet he clearly dared not look at me. I swung myself onto Mu Jianin's lap, wrapping my arms around his neck and leaning down to kiss him. Mu Jianin's body stiffened. His breath ragged, he pulled away, his voice strained. Xiao, we're not married yet. This is. I laughed at him. Mu Jianin, you've dared to turn the world upside down. Now you want to cling to propriety? My cold, slender fingers traced restlessly across his throat, stirring a storm in Mu Jianin's eyes. The carriage jolted relentlessly, and the passion within it knew no bounds. Mu Jianin's incursion into the imperial palace with his troops enraged the emperor. Pei Heng suffered severe injuries, nearly losing his life. I explained the entire incident to father, pleading for him to intercede on Mu Jianin's behalf. Father suppressed the rage in his chest and ordered me confined to the house. I waited anxiously, and finally, 3 days later, news arrived from the fifth prince. Pei Heng had been found guilty of misconduct and sentenced to 3 months of reflection at his residence, with no visitors permitted. Mu Jianin, having mobilized troops without authorization and injured the crown prince, was stripped of his military duties and sent to Lingnan to suppress bandits. Confined to the palace, I waited for Mu Jianin to come to me, but he never appeared, departing directly for Lingnan. After 2 days of brooding, I could no longer bear it and scaled the wall to the Prince of Lin's residence. Prince Pei Zhan showed no surprise at my arrival, merely gesturing for me to sit. Your Highness, did Mu Jianin simply leave like that? Oh, he came to see me before departing. I stood rooted to the spot, silent. Pei Zhan relished my distress, angry. Enough. He came to instruct me to watch over you carefully, to ensure nothing happens to you. I pursed my lips. Why couldn't he tell me that himself? Pei Zhan grinned with a smug look. You'll have to ask your father that. Pei Zhan said it was my father who personally begged the emperor to send Mu Jianin to Lingnan. In name, it was exile. In reality, it was protection. It was also my father who stormed into the general's residence and beat Mu Jianin senseless. I hear the chancellor, in his old age, still has the vigor to beat the general of the frontier into a bloody pulp, leaving him utterly helpless. I froze, unable to picture Mu Jianin being savagely beaten by my father. Why would my father beat him? Pei Zhan looked at me meaningfully. He beat him. It might not be a bad thing. Mu Jianin deserved that beating. After all, it was a gift from his father-in-law. He might even be secretly pleased. Huh? I didn't understand. Pei Zhan said no more. He told me to stay put at the mansion and avoid causing any more trouble. I refused to leave, sitting on the chair and asking him, Why did the emperor only confine Pei Heng? Pei Zhan shot me a haunting look, because he's the crown prince. How could the future emperor bear any blemish? The heir apparent is a matter of state, a single hair affects the entire body. Unless the crown prince commits an unforgivable offense, how could he be so easily deposed? I blinked. Then tell me, attempting to assassinate one's own brother? Is that an unforgivable offense? Pei Zhan nearly spit out his tea. Lin Xiao, you're waiting for me here? Are you out of your mind? Is my life not a life? Quick, show her out. Show her out. By the time Mu Jianin returned, it was deep winter. The bandit suppression campaign had been executed flawlessly, and the emperor reinstated his military post. Pei Heng remained cautious and circumspect, daring not to cross any lines. Even upon learning Shen Jiao was 2 months pregnant, he made no move. It seemed the 3 months of reflection had borne fruit. The emperor seemed somewhat pleased. He began involving Pei Heng in state affairs, frequently keeping him in the hall of mental cultivation for all-night discussions. Everyone assumed His Majesty had restored his favor toward the crown prince, and Pei Heng remained the undisputed future emperor. Only I knew the truth: the emperor was dying, stricken by a grave illness. In my past life, the emperor passed away just 2 months after I married Pei Heng. Only then did people learn his illness had long been terminal. Calculating the timeline, his days were now numbered. At this critical juncture, securing Pei Heng's position as crown prince was the only way to maintain court stability. Therefore, there was no time to waste. Everything must be done swiftly. Pei Heng soon learned of the emperor's illness. With no one left to restrain or intimidate him, he finally went to see Shen Jiao in secret. Shen Jiao would tell him she had been forced by Pei Zhan and was carrying his child. And so, on a night of thunder and lightning, the 5th prince, Pei Zhan, was assassinated in his own residence. The entire court was thrown into shock. With his sole rival gone, Pei Heng grew even more unrestrained. He knew that even if the chancellors and generals' households refused to support him, once Pei Zhan was dead, everything would change. Everyone would fawn over him, Pei Heng, to secure their own political survival. The emperor, traumatized by the 5th prince's death, took to his bed. Rumors spread that the emperor might not survive the year. On the eve of the new year, Pei Heng attended the imperial banquet in the emperor's stead. Seated in the seat of honor, he listened to the flattery of his ministers, his face haughty, his expression cold. It was as if he were already the emperor. His gaze suddenly flickered toward me, standing behind my father. He couldn't help but curl his lips in contempt. "Shower, come here." Under the gazes of the crowd, I rose and stepped forward, approaching Pei Heng 1 step at a time. "Pour wine for this palace." Pei Heng reclined in his chair, watching me as he drummed his fingers casually on the table. Every gesture radiated mockery. I picked up the wine jug and filled his cup to the brim. Pei Heng downed it in 1 gulp and burst into laughter. Gripping my wrist, he said, "Shower, if only you'd been this obedient earlier. Had you not insisted on marrying Mu Jianin back then, you might have been my future empress today. How about it, regret it?" I smiled faintly. "I do." Pei Heng reveled in my reaction, his words growing increasingly frenzied. "Once this crown prince ascends the throne, Mu Jianin will be the first I deal with. Staying with him will only bring you suffering. Stay tonight and please me. In return, I'll grant you the title of noble lady. What do you say?" I finally couldn't hold back and laughed aloud. Pei Heng's expression instantly turned dark and vicious. "What are you laughing at?" I looked at him calmly. "Pei Heng, I laugh at how you're blind to your impending doom. Your last drink is served. Prepare for the journey." Pei Heng stormed to his feet, lunging to grab my collar. Mu Jianin, who'd long been holding back, flew forward and kicked Pei Heng aside. He spun around, shielding me behind him. "How dare you? Are you plotting rebellion? Guards! Seize them!" Pei Heng scrambled to his feet, pointing at Mu Jianin and me as he shouted curses. Guards wielding swords burst in. The assembled ministers looked on in panic, unsure what had triggered this uproar. They all turned to look at my father, only to find him pouring himself another cup of wine, seemingly oblivious to the shocking scene unfolding before him. "Seize these rebels!" Pei Heng barked the order viciously. Mu Jianin and I were instantly surrounded. Mu Jianin swept the room with a calm glance. Not a single guard dared advance. The renowned general of the frontier, a man of glorious military achievements, could he truly be apprehended by mere guards? Seeing this, Pei Heng charged forward, lunging at me with his sword like a madman. The next instant, Mu Jianin's blade pressed against his throat. Mu Jianin, this is treason. Pei Heng ground out each word through clenched teeth. Mu Jianin let out a cold laugh and waved his hand lightly. Hundreds of soldiers burst into the hall from outside, while the fifth prince, Pei Zhan, stepped into the night. Pei Zhan? You're not dead? Impossible. I clearly. Pei Zhan chuckled softly. What exactly did you clearly do, Your Royal Highness? You clearly sent men to kill me, yet here I am alive. Am I not right? The ministers exchanged glances, their whispers growing louder. Pei Heng's voice turned icy. Father is gravely ill. This crown prince is now the rightful emperor. Pei Zhan, you feigned death to deceive the throne and now dare to slander this crown prince. You shall be taken to the Ministry of Justice for punishment. Pei Zhan looked at him coldly. You dare call yourself emperor? You, a traitor who colludes with enemies, betrays your country, and murders your own kin? Pei Heng suddenly froze. He finally understood everyone before him had come prepared. He had already fallen into a trap. Boxes of evidence were carried before the ministers. After examining them, each was utterly shocked. Every piece of evidence proved Pei Heng had sheltered the daughter of a criminal minister, orchestrated the assassination of his own brothers, and colluded with Shen in treason. Pei Heng descended into madness, laughing hysterically that the evidence was all forged by Pei Zhan. Only when Jiao entered the room did he finally freeze. Jiao, you. Jiao clasped Pei Zhan's arm timidly. Brother Heng, turn back now. Confess your crimes. Fury overwhelmed Pei Heng, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Ha 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 ha. Pei Heng laughed up at the sky, his eyes wide and vacant. Jiao, you betrayed me? After all these years together, you betrayed me. You think Pei Zhan can protect you? How naive! Jiao remained pitifully innocent. My report earned merit. Brother Zhan promised I could atone through service. Her hand caressed her belly, her face tender. Besides, I already carry Brother Zhan's bloodline. This is his legitimate heir, the future crown prince. Pei Heng roared furiously, you dream. All of you are dreaming. The emperor still reigns. I am his personally designated crown prince. Pei Zhan lacks legitimacy. Leading troops to storm the palace today is treason. He will be forever condemned by history. Pei Heng ascended the dais step by step, his eyes blazing as he surveyed the assembled ministers. As subjects of the great Zhou dynasty, you owe allegiance to the emperor and to this crown prince. Those who support Pei Zhan shall be deemed traitors and rebels, deserving of having their entire clans executed. The ministers fell into collective silence. Pei Heng was right. He remained the crown prince. No matter the heinous crimes he had committed, without the emperor's edict, he was still the heir apparent. The rebellious son, Pei Heng, receives the imperial decree. My father suddenly rose slowly, holding aloft the emperor's personally written edict. Crown Prince Pei Heng has deceived the sovereign and committed unforgivable crimes. He is hereby stripped of his title as crown prince and demoted to commoner status. The fifth son, Pei Zhan, possesses both virtue and talent, wisdom and courage. He is hereby appointed as the new crown prince. As my father's words fell, the entire hall fell silent. Mu Jianin lifted his robe and knelt toward Pei Zhan. This subject pays homage to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. All the generals and soldiers followed Mu Jianin. Long live His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. The ministers knelt in unison with my father, none daring to object. From this night onward, Pei Zhan ascended to the highest position, finally becoming crown prince. My father approached Pei Heng, gazing at him intently. His Majesty has a message for you. Pei Heng looked at my father with reddened eyes, his gaze filled with expectation. Foolish and ignorant, unworthy of being my son. Pei Heng finally broke down, tears streaming down his face as he collapsed to the ground. Amidst the chaos, I pushed through the crowd, step by step, until I stood before Pei Heng. Pei Heng, how does it feel to be betrayed? Does it hurt? Does it disgust you? Long-suppressed hatred raged in my eyes. Pei Heng stared at me blankly. Lin Xiao, you hate me? Why? I drew a dagger from my sleeve and tossed it before Pei Heng, a faint, tear-filled smile on my lips. You'll never know. Mu Jianin wrapped his arm around my waist from behind, leading me away from the clamorous hall. Pei Heng took his own life on the spot, his name never to be recorded in the imperial registry. On the 8th day of the new year, the emperor passed away. Pei Zhan ascended the throne. Shen Jiao waited and waited, hoping for news that Pei Zhan would bring her back to the palace. Instead, she only found me. Her eyes filled with terror as she stared at me. Lin Xiao, why are you here? Where is brother Zhan? My voice was cold. Your brother Zhan won't be coming. How could that be? I'm carrying his. I cut her off. What's inside you is nothing but a bastard. Pei Zhan never touched you. It was all a lie to bring down Pei Heng and deceive you. You, daughter of a traitor, truly believed you could become empress? The delicate expression vanished from Shen Jiao's eyes, replaced by a demonic glare. Lin Xiao, it's you. This is all your scheme. I nodded with a faint smile. You're actually a bit smarter than Pei Heng. Shen Jiao lunged to strike me, but guards seized her. She wailed and thrashed like a stray dog. I hesitated, unsure how to end her life. She committed countless evils in her past life, yet this lifetime she hadn't harmed me. Guards! Drag her away. Administer 100 military strokes daily. Let her live 10 days before death. Mu Jianin's steady voice rang out. Startled, I turned to look at him. How could he know? Mu Jianin gazed at me quietly. Lin Xiao, I've come to be with you. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Every wound healed completely in that moment. Mu Jianin, it's been a long time. The end.